Welcome to another episode of Bright Insights, the podcast that leads you to less stress and more success. Here's your host, Paul Bright.
Said that? Who's the slimy little twinkle-toed sucker down here who just signed his own death warrant? Nobody, huh? The very godmother said it. I'm standing. I will PT you all until you die. I'll PT you until you're for sucking buttermilk. Was it you scroungy little huh? Sir, no, sir. You little piece of you look like a worm. I bet it was you. Sir, no, sir. Sir, I said it, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Bright Insights. I am your host, Paul Bright. We are continuing on with the A to Z series with the letter L. L is for language. The bluff, the bottom line up front, is check your language when you become a leader. Check your language when you become a leader. Now, some of you may have recognized that little movie clip that I played. It was heavily censored. It is from the movie Full Metal Jacket, directed by Stanley Kubrick. And it features a drill sergeant who is getting his Marines ready for Vietnam. And he's got his new troops, and he's admonishing them because somebody spoke out of turn. And he's using this language as a disciplinary measure to instill not fear, but authority and the precision discipline needed when you were going to be a Marine, especially going into war. And R. Lee Ermey was perfect for that, because R. Lee Ermey, before getting cast in this role, was a technical director for military movies because he did serve as a military instructor in the Marine Corps back before he decided to turn to acting. I served in the Air Force for 10 years. I was active duty. Many of you know this. I was working on the flight line. So I, was out there fixing big jet engines on the C-17 cargo plane, mostly out of Charleston Air Force Base, South Carolina. I worked the crazy hours. I worked a lot. My shifts were 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. or 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. after 9/11. So I spent a lot of odd hours out there, and it gets frustrating when the equipment doesn't work right, or you're doing things, or you're getting challenged by people who don't know what they're doing. And we use salty language. We did. At least I did back then. I would cuss at machines. I would cuss at myself. I would throw tools. I would get very frustrated out there. And then when you communicated with each other, that same language would continue over. And everybody understood it, because it was similar language that we heard going into basic training from our Air Force instructors, who weren't nearly as tough as R. Lee Ermey portrayed himself to be in those movies, but, just enough. And it would carry over. And if there was a big emergency or something broke down really bad, that language would come out. Well, I learned the hard way that you can't use those same types of words and language in any sort of form at home. Because I am still married to a very sweet lady, and I have great kids. And you can't, what did I learn? You can't use that language when putting together your daughter's first bicycle. Even if you're not cussing at her and you're cussing at the bicycle because you can't figure out why this freaking pedal won't install like the other pedal did, with a bunch of beep, 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 because she's in the other room. If you're friends and it's off work and you have friends that call you from the same, work area, and they're talking to you, you can't use that same language that you use out there if your wife is standing next to you, because it's just not appropriate. You can't use that language when describing work problems to your mother. That's also not a good time to use that language. And if you're describing these work problems or whatever is frustrating to your spouse, even if it's not that level of anger, the same words and expressions can come off wrong. So yeah, I learned you can't use that type of language. And even to this day, I really try not to cuss a lot or use aggressive language. Even though at the Air Force level and the maintenance level, it means something different than to my family. And I say that to say this, that the same thing has to kind of happen when you become a leader, when you are no longer an employee, because you are now the next man or woman or person up. When you now are not working by yourself as a solopreneur, but you're hiring people, because now you're an entrepreneur that's got subordinates. You can't use necessarily the same words, the same phrasing, the same language you would describe problems with or interactions with to these people because it doesn't always translate well. What you mean doesn't necessarily reflect in what you say because you have to consider a few factors. Now, those of you who've been following this podcast since I was on another network know that I really preach that your best start of learning how to be the best leader you can be is going to begin with you, with your own skills, with your own personality, and I'm here to help you find out what those things are because I'm giving you a lot of episodes that are very specific to subjects so that you can dig these out of you. It's like, oh, what do I sound like? Oh, what does it look like when I do this? Or what should my health care look like? But words very much identify ourselves. So it's like, how do you adjust your language but still preserve yourself? And I'm going to tell you how to do that in this episode because it's going to be about 3 L's. It's going to focus on 3 different L's. And the first one is to listen. Listen to your subordinates. We do something similar in the counseling and psychology field. So when we work with clients and we're trying to build rapport, whether it's a kid or somebody you know or somebody you don't know, somebody older, younger, whomever it is that's in front of you and you're working one-on-one with them and you're trying to get them to trust that you're there to help them because honestly, still mental health has its stigma. One of the tools that we use to help build that rapport is reflective language. If a client uses certain phrases over and over and you understand what they mean to describe feelings, then you are going to use the same language when you are describing those similar feelings back to them and what they can do to help themselves. For example, I had a teenager client from the Bay Area, and she was amazing, did very well for herself despite all her struggles. And we would drive by places. She's like, oh, yo, Paul, man, I used to hang out there 25-8. And I was like, what does 25-8 mean? And after she said it a few times, I was like, oh, it's like an exaggerated version of 24/7. When you say you do something all the time, you're not necessarily doing it 24/7. But this was how she described doing something so much that she was there 25-8. I thought it was cool. I thought it was cute. And when we got to a point where we had to talk about self-care and talking to yourself positively inside her head, I would say, you got to do that 25-8 more than normal. Okay. You gotta take that on because it's important for you. And she got it. She knew I wasn't trying to be hip or cool. She knew I was just trying to speak in a way that she was going to understand quicker. And she picked up that I was trying to do that. And so that is helpful. It's helpful when you talk to your subordinates too. They may use certain phrases or words to describe how they feel or how they work and stuff like that. And instead of you using just your language, if you start to learn what language they use, what words and phrases they use to describe things, you can do the same. Even if your subordinates are English as a second language, there might be a word, like if you have Hispanic workers, there may be a word or two that they use to describe hardworking or getting stuff done. And they may use that phrase. You say, what does that mean? And then they tell you, oh, this means hardworking or getting stuff done. And so if you got admonish or pep somebody up, you tell them, hey, we got to get going. We got to get this thing doing. We got a big case. And then you throw in that word at the end and they light up. It's like, oh, yeah, he gets it. It's like, yeah, you get it. I get it. So let's do this. That's where that language comes in. So you listen to your subordinates, listen to them and see what words do they use to communicate really big, even small things in their feelings. Got to do that. The other thing is to look. Now, our words are important, but you got to look. Look at how people are postured when you communicate disciplinary things, positive things, a good high five, a stern look. How do they respond to you with certain words? If I look at my son and go, hey, pick that effing piece of paper up right now, he's going to give me the shady look, okay? And he'll do it, but he's going to have a bad attitude the rest of the day. And I've not cussed at him like that, but I've been, hey, go pick that up now. I've done that to him before when he was younger. And I just watch his body like, curl up like he was scared of me. And I was like, I don't want him to be scared of me. So maybe I should try something different to show that I'm upset and he needs to get things done now. And so I had to change my language based on what I saw with him. I was like, hey, I know you've been doing a bunch of stuff, but this is not a good look when you're just walking by a piece of paper, even though you've been playing video games all day. Go pick that up. He could see that. He looks in my eyes. He can see I'm being serious, but I'm not trying to be aggressive. And he can respond like, okay, you got a good point. And then he can go pick it up. So I learned to change that by the look. So look at your subordinates. How do they react when you say good things? Do they do well with direct eye contact or not? Maybe it's easier to sit next to somebody and communicate something versus trying to look them dead in the eye. Maybe looking dead in the eye works for you. Like, hey, look me dead in the eye when I talk to you. That may incite fear in somebody. That may incite aggression or whatever. And if they're subordinates, they'll probably do what you say anyway, but the morale starts to go down. And the third L is to let go. Let go. It's not just words or curse words or certain phrases that you have to learn how to let go when you go from employee to leader. It's an attitude. It's a reflection. It's an expression of your reflection, your feelings that sometimes you have to let go in the moment and maybe change the phrasing a little bit, but some things you just can't say. So if you are an employee and you walk in with your fellow employees and you walk into the place of business and you open the door and the boss is in a bad mood and you look at him and go, well, this is going to be a crap day. He might go, yeah, you got that right. But you'll still work the same. You guys are at the same level. Now, if you walk in as the boss and somebody, on the other side of the room is doing that, and you look around and go, well, this is going to be a crap day. All of your employees, your subordinates heard that, and you are setting the tone. You're telling them the rest of this day is going to suck. So now you've got 8, 10, 12 hours of employees thinking our leader says this day is going to suck. Now they're carrying that around. Maybe you didn't mean it to that degree, but because you are management, because you are a leader, because you are in charge, it can easily carry to that degree. Just like not saying anything when things go down may seem like you don't care. You have to be careful with that. You have to learn what to let go. So maybe instead of saying, well, this is going to be a crap day, you could probably go in and say, you know what? This looks like this is going to be a challenging day, but we're going to get through this because we know how to do things. All right, let's get to it. And you keep checking in and you keep checking in. Don't let them ride off of phrases like that or throwing stuff around or cussing and this and that and just kicking cans. Even if you're just frustrated with yourself or something that doesn't have to do with them, they all pick up on that. They're looking for you as the guide, as the beacon, as the leader. So you have to let that go. Even in cases where you tend to retreat to your office when things go down because you need to concentrate. Sometimes you have to let that go and use the appropriate language to let them know it's like, hey, listen, I'm not leaving you guys in the lurch. I just need a couple minutes to get myself focused so I can figure out how to do this. If you communicate that using language instead of just, let me just go to the office, okay? That's helpful too. So yeah, let go of those employee habits and pick up leadership habits, especially when it comes to your language. So listen to your subordinates, look at how they react, and let go of employee habits and start to put in leadership habits. When you start doing these things, when your language starts to become positive catchphrases or even funny ones amongst your employees that get them going, maybe give them a chuckle, but also motivate them, it's awesome because that is an environment that creates a lot less stress and always leads to more success. Until next time.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Bright Insights. For more information on how to have less stress and more success, visit brightinsightsmedia.com.
If you enjoyed this episode in particular or the Bright Insights podcast overall, subscribe and share with your friends. That gives us a little more visibility. And with that, we can all have less stress and more success.